Uthrandir Future Developments podcast. I am your host, Yo-Yo8346. Today we have some special guests with us. We have Lars, Stephen Just Came, Bellon the Wise, GroundWalrus, Paragory, and Moogle. So we're going to be discussing future developments and improvements of the developer teams. So we'll start off with Bellon. He'll be talking about spells. So can you just tell us, what's going on with the spells, how they're going?
Hello, everyone. I am Bellon, and I'm so glad to be here. So talking about spells has been something that we've been working on, or I've been working on, since the opening of the server about 2 years ago. I'm working really hard on trying to get some kind of balance. In the initial stages of the spells, we kind of went for a Lord of the Rings approach, where it was a long cooldown to simulate the time it would take to cast spells, but now we've moved into a more frequent use of the spells. As we open the PvE dungeons, I noticed that the spells could be used there, but they didn't necessarily have to be used for PvP. So one of the things that I'm working on, along with this kind of cosmetically designing the spells and keeping them very, very clean and very, very to the point, is actually removing a lot of the PvP aspects of the spells. So spells, cool spells like Possession, Levitate, Bloodbend, all those other ones that were, in some cases, overpowering, can now be put back into play, but only to target mobs. So that's one of the things we're working on. The other thing we're working on is cosmetic spells. As we try to encourage creativity on the server, we found that you can have these wonderful, cool particle effects that will simulate a spell without actually doing any damage, and then the damage can be calculated, either using U rank or honor system, just using the imagination. So we're kind of working on formulating some generic spells. So, for example, like a fire projectile spell, water projectile, water AoE, order AoE, all those things that you can simulate charging ritual spells that will look nice but won't really do anything. The last thing that we're doing with magic spells is that we found a way to finally create artifacts. Yesterday, we just had an amazing opening of the dungeon where we kind of gave away or redistributed, for lack of a better word, the Oathbreaker. As this starts to work, we're going to be able to have more items. Not to the point of being ridiculous about it, but at least to the point where there's going to be some kind of want to get these items. So with magic spells now, we can actually create items that have U rank bonuses that will not be hard to understand or decipher. So a lot of stuff going on in the magic spells development.
Okay, thank you, Bellon. That was great. Next, Paragory with U rank. So, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. So at the front of my team's effort is a reorganization of staff roster with an intent to reinvigorate the U rank and produce more activity and content. In the upcoming week, we're beginning on working on making several changes to the rank of Legend, including a new application template and several character ranks that fit players' playstyle.
Okay, cool. All right, so next we'll go to Lars with plugins. So, are there any new plugins being developed, or what's going on?
Well, as most of you will probably have noticed, there are a lot of changes going on with Minecraft behind the scenes. Even though 1.8 has just come out, Mojang has actually been sold to Microsoft, and prior to that, the main kind of development team of Bukkit, and Bukkit is the server software that we've been using, their main development team have quit. So, and that has a lot of repercussions for us as a server, because all of my plugins are made to kind of hook into the Bukkit software. So I don't know exactly how things are going to play out. I'm kind of waiting on some different developments. There are some replacements for Bukkit that are being built, but there have also been people saying that they're trying to update Bucket to 1.8. So that does mean that whenever something new comes out in the future, I'll have to rewrite most of the plugins. So it's not a lot of use right now to work on a lot of new stuff, because that means I just have to do double work later on. So right now I've mostly been working on maintenance, making sure everything that we have that is working correctly, and just doing general maintenance and kind of planning for the future.
Okay, so what you're saying pretty much is that this whole thing with Microsoft and Mojang is a pain in the neck for people like you doing plugins.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, and Mojang has been promising to kind of, because you got to understand that Bucket is a software that we can use to kind of have multiplayer servers, and it's a community-run project, so it's not owned necessarily by Mojang, and so they're not associated with each other. So whenever they quit, there's not instantly a replacement, and whenever a replacement comes around, everything just works differently. And Mojang has been promising to have an official mod API for a couple of years now, and when something like that would come out, it would save a lot of work for me. But as it stands now, I'm just kind of at the mercy of kind of the development community as a whole.
Right, that was informative. Okay, so next we have Moogle for Economy. So can you tell us what's going on, what's being developed?
Currently with the economy, we're working on something called Uthranomics. Uthranomics is a COC system that will have a dynamic point system for each of the kingdoms. With these points, they will pretty much relate to the value of certain items that we use. These points will also be used as an upkeep system as well. This system is not yet set in place. There's still a lot of discussion about it because there's a lot of work to be done with this. I've spent about the last 3 weeks currently just brainstorming over this huge monster. So for right now, that's one of the main things we're working on, is a way to make the system somewhat dynamic. With that, we could see more things like you claim merchants and things in that nature, as well as getting rid of the NPC shops to where players would have more value buying from each other instead of through shops. Shops, for the most part, right now are just a temporary fix, so don't expect for them to stay forever. That would cover the dynamic portion. Right now, we are also working on expanding the economic team. I have been looking for several players, and we're also looking at expanding Balnir himself. We found Balnir to be a very fun part of the economy, to where players will literally spend everything they have at him. I've gotten multiple people telling me that I'm changing Balnir too often because they don't have enough money and they can't grind fast enough. But one of the things we've been thinking about doing for Balnir is possibly adding another character. Besides Balnir, we're also looking at several more economy events, things like a Uthrandir Arthur's Guild. The Arthur's Guild would pretty much be a way for players to submit their lore to the entire server, as in players can write books and then sell it to this character. And what will happen the next time we have the event is there will be NPCs that will be selling the books that were sold to him. So players would be making money, then they would spend money on these books, and then we would actually have books trading hands and filling up libraries to where any player can be known as an Arthur depending on how good his book is. So it kind of leaves it very unbiased to any player can really be an Arthur if their writing is good enough. For the economy, I think that pretty much sums up what we're working on right now that I'm allowed to say.
Okay, so wow, that's a lot of stuff. Next, we will go to Stephen Just Came with lore. So what's going on in there?
With the lore team, which is myself and a few other individuals, we're mainly at the moment working on looking over the lore that's already existing, and when we have to, or when we're asked to, we look at to make revisions or add-on for anything that has been changed in the course of time when the lore was introduced. Like, most of our projects at the moment that we're working on, who I've tasked myself and some of our lore developers to work on, are mainly just things that have been around for a while that need to be dusted off or reintroduced, or what we think would be, or what we'd like to be reintroduced. As we've had a handful of individuals give us their lore to work on for the server, and we've been kind of plucking away, adding new ideas, looking at the lore we have already and looking at the lore we've been given to kind of make the lore acceptable to be produced to the servers so that everyone can use rather than just a few select individuals. And it may sound like it's not a lot of work, but when we take a commission like that, I guess you can call it, we really like to take our time and make sure we don't release it in parts. We want to release the whole deal of it, so it's not just left open-ended and people can be like, oh, when are you finishing this? No, we would rather have the whole cup of tea. We don't want some of it, we want it all. And when we release something that's completely finished, we can, say, that's it, this is all we're doing on this notion. But if we want to move on, we can always just make a second installment.
All right, yeah, I really agree with that. I like how you focus on putting it all out at once rather than putting something out half done and it could confuse people. I agree with that. All right, so next we have GroundWalrus, who will be talking about advertising. So what's the ad team you and I working on right now?
Hi, so I'm GroundWalrus. So what the ad team is currently working on is, there's a few different areas that we're working on. There's stuff to do with videos, there's graphics and banners, that type of stuff. Then there's also Planet Minecraft and these different server list pages that we're trying to update. So for videos, what we're currently doing is we're trying to do plugin spotlight videos for all of the custom server plugins. So we have quite a few of them done now. There's a few left to do. And on the Planet Minecraft page, we're going to have there's going to be a section for the Clash of Crowns server. And I'll have a feature list for each of the custom plugins so people can really just see all of the amazing things that the server has. And then there'll be a video for each one so people can watch it and understand how all these different things work. We're doing the plugin spotlights, so those are great for letting people know how all these different things work. Then we're also working on settlement spotlights. I'm currently filming one of them. That they've kind of taken a bit of a backseat to trying to get the Planet Minecraft page updated, because that's something really important that we're focusing on, and that should be ready really soon. So settlement spotlights are another thing, and we're also going to be working on a new main trailer that people can watch and get a whole idea of what Uthrandir as a whole is all about. And then, yeah, working on Planet Minecraft, that's a big thing. And then updating some of the different graphics of banners for the different servers on Uthrandir. So those are the main things that we're working on.
All right, that sounds good. Okay, so here are the questions from the community. So here's one for Stephen just came. Sky Dream Studios asked, what happened to the Shadow?
The Shadow was, for anyone who doesn't know, was an event character played by a previous head lore developer named Robot Braum. Now that he's out of the picture and he is no longer around doing stuff for the server or playing here, we can't necessarily have the Shadow as he has property over that character. Now, within the storyline of Uthrandir, the Shadow was defeated by Lucan Stonefist and crew a few soli ago. Technically, the Shadow is still around, he's just defeated. However, at the same time, we can't just reintroduce him because he is not ours to give. Which is a little bit sad because the Shadow is a really great Skrinair antagonist.
Okay, thank you. All right, here's one for Moogle. Someone said, how will you try to prevent inflation and deflation of the economy?
That's a difficult question, so I'm gonna try to give the simplest answer I can. How would I try to prevent inflation and deflation? I'm not. I'm going to let gold take its natural course, like with the way of prestige. If a feature is added that requires more prestige, then obviously prestige is going to be worth much. The change of how much prestige that is being put into the economy is the exact same, but that's something that I will allow players to kind of have control of. With Rye is a great standard of how much gold we want to be flooded into the economy at a time, so we're going to be keeping that at the exact same. As far as gold sinks and everything else goes, the inflation and deflation of the economy depends completely on the player base and what they decide to spend their money on. I can give you 101 things to buy, but you have to decide what you want to spend your money on.
Okay, that makes sense. Here's a question for Paragory. Zeos asks, do you plan on making ranks for archers or swordsmen or something similar?
Right now, the answer is no. We don't plan on making specific ranks like that. We're more focused on the ranks that I mentioned earlier, making ranks that legends can use. I think that in those specific instances, like people who want to play a swordsman or an archer, it's really up to their modifier and their role-playing sense to determine how they want that to work out. So, and that really just boils down to how well a player can roll dynamically, as well as describe their character's advantages and disadvantages in roleplay.
Okay, here's a question for Bellon. Alpha Fox 2 said, are the old spells going to be cleaned off the forum? I'm not sure if she meant website, but that's what she said.
Yeah, we're actually in the process of doing a brand new website. So the thing about the question was, do we spend time kind of taking all the stuff off? We're going to do it anyway. But to answer the question is yes, they will be cleaned off, but keep in mind that there's going to be a brand new website that we're currently working on. It's going to have everything updated and easily accessible and actually correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Here's one for Lars. Chris Noble asked, when will the server be switching over to 1.8?
Well, whenever, like, if Bucket would update to 1.8 right now, we could probably switch over in a week or two. Because obviously it's going to take a little bit of time for me to get everything in order. However, there's a very good chance that Bucket will never update to 1.8, and I'll have to use some other software, and that means we'd have to both wait for the new software and then rewrite all of our plugins to the new software. So it could be weeks, it could be months, but as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. This one is for GroundWalrus. Mastodon73 said, what software programs do you use to record and edit?
Okay, so for recording, I just use QuickTime. Now I'm not sure if the screen recording feature of it works on Windows, but it does on Mac. I use that because it's first of all, it came with my computer for free, so that's really nice. But I find it doesn't lower my FPS at all. Now for editing, I use Premiere Pro CC 2014 from Adobe for all the base editing. Then for any special effects or title scenes, motion graphics, that's all After Effects. And then for a lot of those, I use some different plugins to do certain things, like on the Uthrandir outro, all those particle effects. That's all from a plugin for After Effects called Trapcode from Red Giant. So that's what I use to do that type of stuff. And then if there's any audio editing that I have to do, then I use Adobe Audition. So those are the programs that I use.
Okay, thank you. Here's one. I think this one would be for Lars, because you're designing the new website. Well, you and Bellon are. Runa Logic said, will the new website be easier to get information and navigate?
Yes.
Yes, the whole
Thank
reason to
you.
make a new one. The whole reason to
Yeah.
make a new website is for the ease of information and access.
Because when we started at the server, we had no knowledge of all of the technical stuff involved. That's why we chose to do a website where we're hosting it right now, because it's custom made, but it's made with a type of online editor, so it doesn't offer us as much customization as we'd like. And now that we've learned a lot more, we're able to make our own website, and we're able to do a lot more with it. So that's why we're working on it.
Okay, that's cool. So thank you guys for doing this podcast. I'm sure the community will like it and like to hear what's coming for them. So that's Yo-Yo signing off.